What's good, everybody? Mo Kama's Sunday service, and today we are going to be talking about the sectors that boom every time America goes to war. And we're talking about this because yesterday the U.S. Bombed Iran, which for me, that means we're at war or going to war if you're dropping bombs on another sovereign nation, right? So I'm Mo Kamas, Mo Stacks. I'm an attorney that happens to trade in my spare time, and I have over six figures invested in the market, so I look at it every single day. Today, we're going to be talking about the U.S. bombing Iran yesterday, what sectors to trade when that happens, and the stocks in those particular sectors. All right, let me go full screen. So, what sectors to trade or what sectors tend to go up when America goes to war? First, let's talk about Iran specifically. Iran is the third largest oil producer in the world. It that only accounts for about 4% of the oil production, but it also controls a really important oil corridor in the Strait of Hormuz, and that means that could affect oil prices. And what typically happens is that oil prices go up. And when oil prices go up, typically energy stocks, oil stocks tend to get more expensive, right? Because the oil that they're selling, they can sell for more. And so that is the first sector that is going to benefit from us going to war potentially. At least this is what I've seen in the past. I don't know if you remember when Israel and the Gaza war kind of started, and we saw Israel. What was it when they started exchanging fire with Lebanon next to it? And when that happened, you saw a spike in oil prices and energy prices. And not just that, historically. Typically, when nations are going to war, right, we need more energy, we need more oil. And this is around the world, whoever's fighting. And a lot of times, one of the first things that countries are trying to cut off is oil production, specifically if they are strategically placed in an area where they can do so, like Iran is, right? Because that is their way to kind of fight back. It may not have the weaponry to combat the U.S., but it could potentially constrict and restrict resources to Europe and other places around the world, right? So, what's in that sector specifically? The ETFs would be XOP, XLE, OIH, right? Those are the ETFs potentially to trade to the upside. And if you know, my style is typically on a pullback, but this happened on Saturday, so I assume some of the futures are when they open, they're gonna push up some of these particular names. But come Monday, if you see an oil name down or energy stocks down, it might be a potential trading opportunity to the upside, especially if we see a prolonged war between the U.S. and Iran or Israel and Iran, right? And some of the individual stocks inside of those ETFs would be ExxonMobil, Chevron, Schlumberger, ConocoPhillips, and VLO, right? And so these are some of the energy names to kind of watch, specifically if we see Iran make a statement saying they're going to continuously retaliate against the U.S. and Israel. I even think I just read an article indicating that they did intend to shut down the Strait of Hormuz, which makes it harder for other Middle Eastern companies to get oil to the rest of the world, which tends to increase oil and energy prices, which is why I am bullish energy and oil specifically this week. And as we see things play out, we'll see if things escalate, or ideally, this is just for the rest of the world in peace. Tensions kind of simmer, but in the meantime, I wouldn't be shocked that oil prices start to rise, especially in the summer too. I feel like gas prices always go up in the summer anyway. Number two sector would be defense stocks. This is kind of the most intuitive one, right? If more missiles and more bombs are being dropped and more planes and drones are being flown, I assume more money is going to go to the defense stocks and the aerospace stocks. Those are General Dynamics, Boeing, right? And specifically Boeing with their planes lately. Their stock has taken a lot of hit with their plane crashes, but it also produces a lot of aerospace technology and some weaponry for the U.S. government. Northrop Grumman, Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, right? All of these defense stocks that build the weapons, the missiles, things of that nature, the planes. I would assume, and typically historically, when we're in periods of war, right, defense spending goes up, which would benefit these particular companies, right? And then the last that's not so intuitive is cybersecurity stocks. Wars aren't just fought on the ground anymore or in the air. Now we are fighting through the internet and through code and through information, right? And trying to gather as much information about particular countries, or sometimes I don't know if you remember a few years ago where Israel was able to dismantle portions of Iran's nuclear capabilities through inserting viruses in their systems. So that's why cybersecurity stocks are extremely important in 2025 as it relates to wars, because wars aren't just fought traditionally anymore, right? And so some of those stocks would be CrowdStrike, Palo Alto Networks, Fortinet, Zscaler, right? So in times of war, then cybersecurity becomes more important, as well as people try to hack U.S. systems and fight us in that way, not necessarily with bombs, etc. And you can do a lot of damage now, considering everything that's online with cyber attacks, right? And we've seen that over the last, I would say, 5, 10, 15 years. So these companies have been a lot more important as well when wars come around, because I would assume cyber attacks are going to increase if we go to war with other nations with those types of capabilities, right? So that's it in terms of stocks and sectors that do well when the U.S. is at war, and just something to look at, right? And we don't know yet what this war looks like, or was it just a once a one time bombing? But I would assume that Iran is going to retaliate. And then the issue is, what does our current administration do once Iran retaliates? Because they will, right? They've already retaliated against Israel by sending rockets and missiles towards Israel's general population. They're a little further away from the U.S., and we have a little bit more capabilities than that, but I wouldn't be surprised if they started attacking U.S. interests near them in the U.S. in terms of ships, embassies, things of that nature, right? So, going into the trading aspect of thing, what are my weekly stock picks and sectors for this upcoming week on Monday when the market opens? Because I trade options and not futures. The disclaimer is in this YouTube video at the bottom in the description. This is for informational purposes only. This entire podcast, right? These are my opinions. I am not a licensed financial professional or advisor. I'm just talking to you about things that I do specifically and things that I'm looking at. And you should be doing your own research and or talking to your financial professionals and advisors if you have them about your trades and investments, because investments and trades are risky. Next week, we have a ton of FOMC speakers. I looked at the calendar for next week, and I usually use Forex's calendar. I don't trade Forex, but they have a good like little um, calendar to tell you, hey, what are some things that could cause some volatility in the market, right? Some public events. And I looked and saw a million FOMC speakers, right? The Fed governors and officials that affect interest policy rates. That's important because it determines the cost of money and the cost to borrow money, right? And so whatever they say about raising or lowering interest rates can tend to move the market, and specifically about when they're going to be doing that, whether it's at their next meeting or the meeting after that. And so you could get some volatility if you're doing some swing trading or some day trading during the week. So just be careful for that. Specifically, the Fed chair, who is the big kahuna, he testifies on Wednesday. I believe, I'm not sure if it's in front of Congress, but typically it is if it says he's testifying. So I assume he's testifying in front of Congress, and who knows what they're going to ask him. I assume they're going to, some of the people on the GOP side are going to berate him on why he's not lowering interest rates faster. But with some of those uh, not depositions, but some of those periods of testimony, you could see some volatility if he says something that's a little out of bounds with what he has been saying recently during the most recent FOMC meeting. So just something to look at. That was probably the most volatile thing that I saw for next week in trading. Just be aware of when these FOMC speakers are going on or talking, specifically the Fed chair on Wednesday. So, like if I'm in a trade, I'm going to be watching it going into his speech on Wednesday, and or if I'm not in a trade, I'm going to be using his speech potentially as a catalyst for some volatility to get in somewhere, hoping that it reverses, right? Because I just generally have seen a lot of volatility whenever he speaks. So, how am I building my watch list for next week as it relates to swing trading? All right, and what I typically do is go to koifin.com. I will come over here, go to US sectors, check off these sectors here at the top because those are the ones that I typically trade, where I usually can find some liquidity in the options or the stocks within these ETFs, right? And that's why they're there. Um, and why something like real estate isn't. I don't typically trade real estate. It's hard to find liquidity and options in real estate. So, like, I generally am just trading these sectors that you see here to the right. And so for next week, what looks good? Gold is still up. I assume too, as we go into war and people are kind of scared, it wouldn't surprise me if gold had another boom. It looks like it pulled back 2 or 3 days in a row though. So we'll see. Metals and mining is looking really good. The ETF itself, if it has any liquidity, and then some names that I trade within XME are FCX, Freeport McMoran, and NEM. And once again, like you see, XOP, which is the oil and gas sector, oil services, and kind of energy. I kind of lump those three together: energy, oil services, and XOP, just because they have a lot of overlap with the stocks that are included within them. And those names I already gave you. So, yes, if there's pullbacks in those names, that might be something to swing for next week. And then the chips, right? They've been kind of flat, but overall, I think the chips are still bullish as of right now. They all performed decently well in terms of earnings reports, and if our current president and China kind of get along and they limit some of these chip chip export bans, then and the chip companies can sell some of their chips to China and other places as a result of these negotiations, then yeah, I still like SMH to kind of come up. But that's it, right? Tech is up, but not really. All of these things down here are kind of middling names, right? So really those sectors, maybe gold. This one's been really volatile though. GDX is almost always volatile, at least since I've been looking at it for a few years. XME, gave you those names, so I'd probably start with that. That's like the hottest sector. Oil because of the war on pullbacks, and chips. But that's it. Probably those 3 or 4 sectors would be the only thing that I would think about trading next week: gold, metals and mining, oil, energy, and semiconductors. And that's all I got for y'all today, unless you want to look at any particular stock, any particular name.
I do. I want to look at Apple right now. There's been a lot of saying that Apple might be on a downward, but it seems like it's consolidated too at the same time.
Yeah, well, so here's the issue with Apple, and I haven't heard it in the news recently. The issue is that the president has indicated he wants to put additional tariffs on Apple and single them out as a company unless they make iPhones in the U.S. And this was like in the middle of the tariff war, even pre negotiations with China. So that's really the only thing that's holding Apple back right at the moment is its inability to be able uh, to sell more iPhones or making iPhones more expensive because the president's going to put additional tariffs on it, and then trying to figure out its supply chain issues. But from a earnings standpoint, Apple's earnings still looked good in its last report. Um, it just didn't pop up with the other tech names at the same time because the administration currently is singling it out. Uh, I do want what did I think I had a number to buy to put leaps on Apple. I think at 165. Facts.
Yeah, I think I did one for when they dropped down at the 170s, I want to say, for the 200.
And
But
I, and the reason why I love that specific entry point too is because I feel like I did really well on Apple. I feel like I got in over here and made a few $1,000s on some leaps up to like this area right here. I'm almost certain that I did. So I know historically, not just from looking at this chart, but also making the same trade a few months ago. Maybe, in 2024, I made some really good money off getting in right here and then like selling somewhere up here. I think I got out and then it stopped me out on the rest of my portion when it got to this line. But
but
if history repeats itself, that's the number that I like Apple, and I would buy leaps on Apple. But when you're talking about the future, Apple needs to get a secondary product outside of the iPhone. Like it needs a second trick. It's a one trick pony right now, and it needs a second trick. Like and they
and I
have
feel
all
like
of
it's
this
been
cash.
given a lot. I've been hearing like commentators always talking about it's not really jumping in the AI world yet either.
Yeah, and they got all this money, and so I'm like, and it's like, what do you? If you have all of this cash, and we all know that there's an AI race going on, Apple was strategically positioned to maybe take advantage of that to invest in ChatGPT like Microsoft did, to invest in Anthropic. I think like Amazon has a partnership with them. Google's building its own AI or LLM like in Gemini like to enter the race, and so it's just kind of mind-boggling that Apple isn't in that race with all of the money that it has and all of the people that are buying and using their iPhones. Like it's strategically positioned, and I don't see them I don't see them doing anything else. Like what else? They tried the goggles or the glasses and that shit didn't work. So that hasn't become like a money mover for them. So it's like what are they doing next? And that's the question that everyone is asking. Like because the iPhone 16 is the same as the iPhone 10, you know? There hasn't been really any big jumps in technological development in the last 6 models. So it's like what are at some point in time you got to innovate, you got to do something else. They don't have like really a cloud like Microsoft Azure, AWS. They could have got into cloud computing easily. They could have got into AI and the LLM race. I don't hear them doing anything on quantum computing, and that's the next big thing. But I only hear about Google and Amazon and other companies getting into quantum computing, and Apple's not there. So what's going to be its next major you know breakthrough once the iPhone fades? Is it going to become IBM? Right? Used to be the is it going to become Intel one day? I still think over the next year or two, which is why I would do a leap. I don't think less people are buying iPhones or switching to something else unless you know of some phone that's coming out that everybody else is itching to buy. Most people I know are buying iPhones, and it's mostly because of the network because everyone else has an iPhone and you can do certain stuff on an iPhone together that you can't do with an Android phone or something else. So that's why you're buying iPhones because of the connectivity it provides with you, your family members, friends, etc.
Do that.
Right? Not because the phone is better.
Right.
So yeah. So yeah, I would still personally buy leaps at 165. If it gets down to 165, that's gonna be my target to buy leap. Even this little 200. Oh, this is a week chart. Let me go look at what the 200-day exponential looks like. No, it's underneath the 200-day exponential. So yeah, looks like it's trending negatively right now, like it's bearish.
Right.
But
Right. Yep. I've
yeah,
noticed that too. Cause like I said, I've been training on it a lot lately, so I've been seeing that it's hitting that 190 mark and then go back to the 200, but it's on a downward movement.
yep. And you know, my rule is don't buy something until it's 40% off the all time high. It'll be more than 40% off the all time high if it gets down to about 165. So I'm just looking at all this support here, this daily support, but specifically like weekly support at that 165 level looks really good for me. That's when I would personally buy, start. Sorry. That's when I would personally start buying Apple Leaps. But yeah, this is on my list. It's one of the top names to buy some leaps on, but I need to see it fall a little bit more. I need them to get into like another tiff with the president or something. You know,
Gotcha.
you want to look at anything else?
That's pretty much it. I was just messing with. What about let's look at Microsoft. Microsoft's always good to look at.
Yeah, but it's at all time highs. That's why I haven't
Is
been
it
looking at it.
talking about it?
No, I no, and this is on my list. I want it. I should have got it right here. It almost hit my target and didn't. What was the low? 344.70. My mark to get in was at 340. Almost hit it, didn't. Never look back. So I'll probably never get a chance to get in unless they get into a fight with the president.
Gotcha.
But I love it, and actually, this looks good to swing trade potentially. This looks the best. Looks like the best name inside of XLK or the Qs right now. Just looking at the trend, it does look like it's trending positively. I just don't like the entire tech sector right now. It's not the strongest sector. It's strong-ish, but chips are stronger than the tech sector. Energy is stronger than the tech sector for swing trading next week. Metals and mining like XME kind of looks like Microsoft too, you know. But the whole sector is doing decently well. FCX,
Got it.
or I was looking at NEM last week. This one looked really good from like the last what's trending right now, you know. And let's look at XLE. Names that are coming up a little bit, you know. XLE not so much. XOP looked like, yeah, it was a little bit better. Slightly different than XLE. Some of the same names. But that's what's trending right now in terms of like what I would be trading on pullbacks for next week. But yeah, Microsoft it's been on my list, but like some of these names just aren't coming as discounted as I want them. But this was my time like to get into Microsoft, but I missed it by $4.
Yes, sir.
Can't get them all, so it is what it is. Yeah. But for me, this is like it shows me that I'm looking in the right place, right? I'm $4 off. It bounced right before what I was calling. That means I was looking in the right place. And for me, that's enough. Like I'm not gonna catch all the trades. I'm not gonna catch like Eli Lilly just had some great results on their weight loss medication. And I've been looking at Eli Lilly for like 6 months now. Still hasn't hit my price. Or 600 is my price. Just trying to be disciplined. Something might happen and they might come down to 600, but like that's the price that I'm trying. I can't get it unless it's 40% off because I need to buy something discounted to stay disciplined. Those are my rules, but this is like they just had some really good trial news on one of their weight loss medications where essentially they have developed a pill that does the same things as the injections. And of course, you'd rather take a pill than get an injection. So yeah, I'm really bullish on Lilly. It just hasn't come down to where it makes sense for me to buy it, given my rules about buying things long term. But yeah,
Yes, sir.
this is the last one I'm missing in my portfolio. But yeah,
Yeah, man, I sold mine too early. Should have kept it.
Yep. I just believe in a company long term. For me, it's a fundamental play for me too. It's like, um, I'll show you guys the leaps on Google that they finally expired on Friday. I decided to keep the shares, but look at the profit on those Google leaps so far, right? And that was about a year and a half ago, maybe, when I bought those Google leaps. Shopify leaps, look at the profit on those. They finally converted to shares. And then these, I had made even more money because I started off with, I think, three leaps in each account on these, and then ended up with one scaling out when it rose. And then I own a website that has Shopify. I think it's going to be around for a long time, so I'm kind of bullish Shopify. Have been for a while. So let those turn into shares. So I got 100 shares of that as well, but it's up 8 grand on both of those accounts too. And then AMD has finally turned around the leaps that me and Ange took, and I still got two in each account of those, I think. Yeah, and so far, 2,200 on those. So for me, I've been like thinking I've been swing trading less, and I would consider doing leap swing trading just over a long time period, but doing less short term swing trading, and I'm trying to do more of the long term leaps now because just frankly that's what's made me the most money over the last couple of years. So I want to keep doing the things that have made me more money.
Quick
Catch
question, Mo. What kind of trade did you do that you were able to
well,
convert them into?
leaps are just calls. And if
Yeah.
you
So,
let calls expire without actually getting out of them, they turn into shares, right?
oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, no, that's what options are for.
Oh,
Mo-
okay. Well, yeah,
yeah.
I know there's some but there's some that are expired that you're just buying a contract kind of thing. But
No, it's like so like if you're trading spreads, yeah, you're
uh
selling options, then yes, it expires at the end and or you have to turn over the shares, but you don't actually like get the shares. When you are buying calls, specifically, the main purpose of buying calls is that at the expiration date, that's just so people know like what we're talking about. Like let's look at the stock that I did, Google. Right? When you let's say if I were to buy a call for the 165 strike that expires on July 18th, 2025, right? And I buy that for 650 bucks, right? 650 times 100 because it's 100 shares. If on July 18th, uh, the stock price of Google is above 165, I this will convert to 100 shares. And so when I'm buying calls, that's what I'm doing. But what I'm hoping is that, let's say on the expiration date of July 18, 2025, is that the price of Google is like at 180. And then I get an opportunity to buy 100 shares of Google at $165, even though the price is currently 180. And similarly, that's what I did with Google. I think what if it ended at 166, that was the price. I think my buy price for Google was like 80 bucks. So those 100 shares that are currently in my account that just came in on Friday, I think I only bought those for like 100 bucks, or like 80 bucks, or half the price of what they. Oh yeah, here it is right there, 80 bucks, and it's currently 166 bucks. So I was able to buy Leaps a year and a half ago, and then I ended up getting 100 shares for half the price that they're currently worth today because that was the contract that I signed up for when I bought those calls.
Nice.
Same thing here. Shopify is currently at $106. I got the shares for 25 bucks because that was the leap that I bought deep in the money when Shopify was at like 50 bucks. Right? So it's a way to actually get into shares and leverage your money more because the purchase price of these calls or these leaps was way less than what the value that I obtained for them. You know. So that's like a 4x, 5x trade right there. So that's really what I've been looking at as my leaps more often, just because like I'm just showing you the results I made off these two that are the last two leaps that I had, and I had sold the other four contracts 16 grand. And off my Google that I held in three different accounts, one of my daughters too, like 24, 25 grand off those. And my AMD leaps right now, still working. And I've been doing better on the ones where I've been buying leaps versus stock. Like ASML, I'm a little down. But my leaps in AMD with less money are doing way better. So yeah,
Nice.
those are the ones that I'm really looking at. It's like, is there
At what
significant
at what price range did you get on the AMDs? Did you get
around
those when they were like
110?
in the 90s
I
or?
think 110. No,
Oh, okay.
even more conservative. It's not even doing that big drop. I'm
Yeah.
almost certain it's still in. And I was just confident because look how much the high was. I looked at the fundamentals. It's making money. The company's growing. The top line revenue is growing. In the semiconductor industry. So it got to a point where it's like 60% off, and I got in around right there. It dropped a little bit more, but I held all the way through, and now it's back up because semis are back up right now. And I'll
Right.
probably scale out. Like here's my mark to scale out around 150 bucks. So that's why I have an alert there. I have four contracts of AMD, two in two separate accounts, and so I'll probably sell two of them when if AMD gets up to 150 bucks, and then leave the other two as runners, where I might let them convert into shares, just like I did with Google and Shopify at some point in time, so that I'm not hugely overweight this one name. You know, I don't want 400 shares of AMD, but I could take 200 shares. You know. But yeah, that's pretty much it. This would have been a better target, but even the 110 price that approximately we got in at, like I just look at the discount factor, I drew the fib levels, and it was severely discounted from the all-time high. It came down a little bit more, but hey, it's back up, turned around, held, and it's a long-term trade for me where the AMD options don't expire until June 18th, 2026. So I got plenty of time. I got another year uh, before these options expire.
Nice, nice.
All right. That's it. I think we done for today.
All right, brother, man. Appreciate the good game as always.
Yes, sir. Mokama Sunday service, making it rain without the umbrellas. Talk to y'all next week.
Peace.
All right, peace.